In today's fast-paced internet, mind swarm activated world, there seems to be immense pressure to echo mainstream narratives, to follow suit with your friends in condemning the latest outrage, despite circumstantial evidence at best at your point of decision making. Juicy Smollett, the Covington kids, being of course prime examples. We've all made this mistake at one point or another. Personally, I just want to be consciously aware of when I do it, of when I make this mistake. The analogy that I like to use are dots on a piece of paper. Yeah, you can form a rudimentary image from just a few dots, but you're missing out on a tremendous amount of the context without more. Context in this case, the more dots you have on the page, the more data, the more complete the picture is. Today's media wants to present a couple of points on the canvas and get you to swallow the narrative that they are portraying as they try to tell us what these dots mean. That's their goal. And then to get you to go out and project this photo image that has been placed into your mind, to echo their verbal narrative and embed it permanently in your mind as fact. But if you wait for the complete picture, unfortunately, by many of your associates, you're deemed to be a bootlicker, one lacking any mental capability to discern what for them is a complete picture that the mainstream narrative is giving them. The truth is, it's exactly the reverse. It is those who swallow the picture presented immediately that are, to put it euphemistically, unwise and impatient. Just as a quick example, let's say that the media presents a 2-second video clip of your friend holding a gun and shooting it at someone who then keels over and dies. If this is all you see, then he is a cold-blooded murderer in your mind. But then you zoom out a little bit and add the context that, hey, look, it's his house. It's on his property. You add that bit of data, the image starts to become less one-sided. Then you add in videotape evidence of the man who came to the property and had in his possession a gas can, matches, and other paraphernalia used in arson, which he was actively committing. Then you present even more evidence where he first came to the house, he boarded up all the potential exits so that family members couldn't escape while the house was burning down, as the Portland rioters tried to do outside the federal courthouse. Once again, you are gaining a more complete picture, and at some point, you have the ability to make your own decision. Of course, if CNN is covering said event, they will only show you, in all likelihood, if it's a Black Lives Matter protester or Antifa, the 2-second version of the clip where the person gets shot. Intentionally, they are attempting to give you an incomplete canvas to look at so that you are more likely to imbibe and spread their narrative. Context adds necessary detail to the narrative, color to the picture. I made the mistake of uncategorically stating that George Floyd had been heinously murdered when I saw the original publicly available footage. I actually shed tears for the man. Now, leaked videotape adds more context as to what took place. For example, Floyd says that he could not breathe before they put him on the ground, and specifically, in fact, requested that he not be placed in the car as he was claustrophobic, but rather to lay him down on the ground. He was clearly high, he was clearly erratic, he was on a cocktail of drugs, including fentanyl, which when you OD on it actually causes cardiopulmonary arrest, which was described in the autopsy. The point is, regardless of whether or not the officer in question, Derek Chauvin, should have been leaning on his neck for as long as he did, which in my opinion, he was still completely wrong in doing. Let me make that clear for you woke skulls out there. The added data adds dots to the picture and creates the context and undermines the prosecution's charges of second-degree murder, which is the intent to kill. But most importantly, the leaked video detracts and disproves the narrative pushed by the left that this was in fact a racist act. Only because he was black was he treated as such. There is no demonstrable racism here, just a series of unfortunate events, including the fact that George Floyd was on a cocktail of illicit drugs, which unfortunately, after all was said and done, resulted in his death. Had this video been made publicly available, it would have greatly limited the riots which ensued, the division of our society, and the rise of an evil Marxist organization. Because we would have had the added data, the added dots in the picture, the added context. To me, the biggest tragedies are the people who refuse to update, to refresh the image they have of an event in their mind. They ascribe one meaning, generally the narrative knowingly pushed by the leftist media, and continue down the warpath with that in mind. I'll share you one of the times that I've made this mistake. I purchased General Electric, and even as new evidence of the company being in far worse shape than I could have imagined, I ignored it, and the stock continued to drop. Hey, facts don't care about your feelings, and personally, I have a huge loss to show for stubbornly clinging to my false narrative. But the good news about it is, because I'm aware of this, because we all have this tendency, today I do my best to adapt my analysis based on the new evidence that is presented to me. Those new dots on the picture that I hadn't seen that help complete the image. And although most of my leftist friends have discarded me for my steadfast refusal to join the dark side of the force, which in fairness does make social distancing incredibly easy for me, I still have a couple who have stuck around to tell me that my abandonment of my original pronouncement of cold-blooded murder makes me a white nationalist and someone to be pitied before I am cast overboard to the circling sharks. Pity me? I think just the reverse. The inability to update one's opinion given new data, which, as I've stated, we're all guilty of at some time, makes for less desirable outcomes for one's personal life, as well as, unfortunately, for our entire society. The left is so attached to the orange man bad narrative that the media intentionally has painted for us time and time again. They are unwilling to incorporate any data which might confront this paradigm. And America is suffering as a result. I firmly believe that as a nation, as individuals, we must evaluate the added pixels in the photo as they come into being and try to evaluate the picture for what it truly is, rather than stop at just a few dots that the mainstream media feeds us and says, look at this horrific picture. I firmly believe that as a nation, as individuals, we must evaluate the added pixels in the photo as they come into being and try to evaluate the picture for what it truly is, rather than stop at just a few dots that the mainstream media feeds us and says, look at this horrific picture we have for you. America is such a racist, intolerant place, for example. That's my encouragement for all of us that might have a tendency to cling to a certain narrative. Really, take a look at the limited data sets that drive our narratives, your narrative, and seek to attain more, and step away from the dark side of the force before we end up in a 1984 Orwellian dystopia, which we are well down the road in becoming. If you like this video, thumb it up, share it with some friends, and leave me a comment as to your thoughts. Subscribe if you're new to the channel, and have a fantastic day. Peace out, everybody.